to be able to just make a choice on your own and just be able to speak for yourself.
This one's wife. Take her back. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Take her back, comes the cry. But back where? To the United States? The United Kingdom? Nigeria? Or maybe some other country that she's yet to reveal to us from her ancestral soup? Well, David Christopher Kaufman writes in the Telegraph, "We Americans are fed up with this one's wife. It's time for Brits to take her back." Well, no surprise that the Americans are fed up with the grifting one, but to suggest that we take her back, well, she wasn't with us for very long to begin with, and she wasn't from here to start with. I think you'll find that most people in Britain, if asked, would you like the Duchess of Sussex back, would provide you with a resounding no, along with, have you lost your mind? But let's find out what Mr. Kaufman is advocating. Say what you want about this one's wife. Narcissistic, well, more than that, she's a narcissist. Self-aggrandizing, yes. Out of touch, can't read the room, no emotional empathy. But her greatest misstep is one of missed opportunity. Well, that is a valid observation. Despite the Duchess's best efforts, her carefully curated home goods line, well, I wouldn't describe it as carefully curated. A 5-year-old could do better. That wannabe state visit to Nigeria, a perfectly plotted anniversary date night, barely 1/3 of Americans have a favourable opinion of this one's wife, far below Princes William, Harry, and the Princess of Wales. Armed with a new podcast deal, well, such as it is, and refreshed communications team, this one's wife is clearly continuing her relentless quest for relevance. Now, as you all know, what appears to some as relevance is actually all about the pursuit of the prime aims, but done subconsciously. She always needs to control when interacting with other people. She has a need for fuel, and of course, there are the character traits and residual benefits. That is the relentless quest. But as the real royals in Windsor contend with double cancer crises, this one's wife has revealed herself a little more than the most infamous symbol of America's high tolerance for low expectations. No wonder Donald Trump has suggested Prince Harry could face deportation if it turns out the Duke lied about past drug use on his visa application. Harry and this one's wife broke the Queen's heart, said Trump, during a lengthy interview with Nigel Farage in March. I think they hurt her bad. It didn't have to be this way. Long before marrying her prince, this one's wife clearly understood the power of public image and personal achievement. Despite a minor role in a minor television franchise, she managed to parlay her innocuous persona into a fairly impressive celebrity existence. With her crowd-pleasing blog, The Tig, this one's wife was an early embracer of the lifestyle content craze that has made rich folk like Gwyneth Paltrow and Reese Witherspoon far richer. And she intelligently deployed her mixed-race heritage into a compelling competitive edge narrative, just as America was embracing the power of identity politics nearly a decade ago. Well, pausing there, this one's wife created a lifestyle content blog because her narcissism demanded that she spoke all about herself, which is what she did, that she takes photographs of herself, which is what she did, and that she essentially grifts for freebies, which is what she did. Furthermore, to suggest that she intelligently deployed her mixed-race heritage, well, not the case. She always held herself out as white, and she only utilised this mixed-race heritage not for the purposes of creating a compelling competitive edge narrative, but to play the victim card by way of playing the race card in order to nullify the threat to control posed by the royal family basically saying no to her. For a nation consumed by representation, this one's wife, unrepentantly divorced and solidly middle class, represented the best of America. I'm pretty sure there'll be quite a few Americans that will take issue with that observation. Tolerant, she's not. Multicultural, she's not. Meritocratic, she's not. This author clearly doesn't understand her. She's not tolerant, as has been demonstrated by the fact that she bullies people behind the scenes, the way that she bosses Harry around. She's not multicultural because, although she plays up to different cultures, that's driven by her narcissism, and she's always held herself out as being Caucasian. She's not interested in a meritocracy. She's interested in pay me because I'm this one's wife. I can't believe I'm not being paid for this, as she remarked in Australia. She doesn't want to put in the hard yards. She doesn't want it to be based on talent. She wants it to be based on who she is. The author continues, sure, it's unlikely she would have ever won an Oscar, but armed with style and that unassailable backstory, this one's wife was well on her way to securing official somebody status, even as she was the most famous in the sleepy confines of Toronto, where her show Suits was filmed. Well educated, well, okay, she went to university, but she doesn't really display much education, and supremely well spoken, come on. Are you on drugs, man? This one's wife likes to talk up those mid-level accomplishments and achievements. She does. She's prone to exaggeration and embellishment as a consequence of the delusion that's created by her narcissism. But ultimately, her greatest accomplishment will forever be becoming a Windsor. Absolutely. She was mediocre beforehand. She still is mediocre, but becoming a Windsor, of course, propelled her onto the world stage. Indeed, despite aggressive efforts to rewrite the legacy of Queen Charlotte, whose supposed mixed ancestry has been lavishly conjured in the Bridgerton series, there has never been a multiracial royal, and the last divorcee to marry a senior family member wound up in exile on the continent. This one's wife, however, had achieved what many had assumed was impossible, diversifying a 1,000-year-old institution for whom change typically arrives via assassination or warfare. But 6 years on, both she and her prince have squandered what could have been a meaningful opportunity. That much is true. It appears as if the Sussex's squandering shows no sign of stopping. The problem for this one's wife is that she still believes in the power of her achievements long after she stopped achieving. That is accurate. This, of course, is driven by her narcissism. She's a legend in her own lifetime, whereas we know she's a legend in her lunchtime. She and Harry's $100 million Netflix deal has delivered little more than a pair of self-serving biopics. Their equally ambitious Spotify tie-up resulted in lost millions, and the couple being branded as grifters by one of Spotify's own executives. As for the Nigeria trip, Harry and this one's wife were apparently flown to Africa on airplanes owned by an alleged money-laundering fugitive. So unsurprising considering wherever they go, they tend to live as big as possible while paying as little as possible. Lack of accountability and sense of entitlement. If only they had remained in Britain, writes the author, not only would the pair be paid for living in a grand home, preparing traditional spreads, showing up at polo matches, and embarking on world tours, this one's wife would have been doing work that actually matters. True, the spotlight would have been unyielding, the scrutiny possibly unforgiving, but is it any less so today, trapped, as the Sussexes are, in the simulacra of peerage while plotting out photo ops? As his ongoing Manhattan trial confirms, Donald Trump is clearly the last person to critique the comportment of others, but unlike the Sussexes, who've never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity, Trump is a prime example of opportunism done right. After all, despite his vulgarity and potential criminality, Trump managed to wind up in the White House. As for this one's wife and Harry, they're idling in Monty Shitshow exile in an overpriced villa paid for by Daddy while they wait for their next American Riviera orchard drop. Perhaps it's time to return to Britain, where they truly could be useful, and where the opportunities afforded by Harry's birth are ultimately far more plentiful. Nay, nay, and thrice nay, Mr. Kaufman. If you honestly think that the United Kingdom is going to welcome these two back, well, watch out for flying pigs. Now, Is this another attempt to try and pave the way for a return by the gruesome twosome? That this unrelented PR blitz suggesting that they could come back, given, of course, Princess of Wales' continuing absence and the King's cancer battle, that they would suggest, well, we could come back and do a job for you. Indeed, she would look to take over when perhaps the crown isn't as strong as it ordinarily want to be. You can make your own mind up, but it's interesting how the author gets many things incorrect about this one's wife, the things that he would understand far better if he recognised and understood her narcissism. Let's dive below the line briefly to find out what people think to this suggestion of this one's wife returning to the United Kingdom. Ben Quillen writes, "We certainly don't want them in the United States, and apparently Britain doesn't want them either. The solution? Send them permanently to Nigeria. After all, didn't she say that Nigeria was her country? Fine. Let them stay there, and good riddance." Hilary Dayton, "We were happy to welcome her and she promptly spat in our faces. Please keep her there." Bill Litvak, "Americans know she is a fake phony, just like hundreds of other Hollywood actors. Saw right through her from the beginning. She bought into the fairy tale of marrying a prince, but she hasn't lived happily ever after. Sorry, she's burned too many bridges to go back. She could start by visiting her father. That's what normal people do. She won't." Margaret Robinson, "She's American, she's all yours, thanks all the same. Have her dim-witted husband as a free gift." Carl Hewitt, "I cannot speak for others, but I really, really, really do not want them back here." Annette Cully, "Take her back. After all those unproven allegations the narcissistic madam made about the royal family, no frigging way, Jose." Chris Steele, "Interesting read, David, but sorry, she's American, so you can keep her. Britain welcomed her with open arms, hoping Harry had found a soulmate after the trauma of losing his mother so tragically. Sadly, it is clear she wasn't that kind of soulmate, but a demanding prima donna who has amplified rather than diminished Harry's demons, using his status as a vehicle for her own self-promotion. Maybe she could relocate to Nigeria, where she claims 43% heritage, or perhaps Malta, where rumour has it her ancestors indulged in some local procreation. Either way, make sure there are plenty of cameras to showcase her many outfits, more suited to US city society pages than native West African attire." Well, pretty clear what the views are, and there's several hundred more in a similar vein. The United Kingdom don't want her back, and if this is an attempt to pave the way for her to return with the Prince of Pink Pancakes, they've really got their work cut out. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.